Good afternoon. I wanted to start out with an introduction. My name is Melissa Cavender. I work as an occupational health and safety professional, and I've been in the occupation for about 7 years. So I've carried it over from the construction industry also to the general industry, and I just wanted to go over a few highlights of electricity. And if you look over here on the board, you're going to be able to see what we're going to be talking about today, or listening. We're going to be going over taking electricity safety seriously. So how many of us actually know how much it takes to start our heart at ventricular fibrillation? You would be amazed at how little of an amperage that it takes. I've written down a little bit of the statistics over here, and at the readings itself, at 1 milliamp or less, there's no sensation. You won't even be able to feel it. At 1 milliliter to 8, you get a sensation of shock. That's when you'll be able to feel it actually go into your skin. 15 milliamps to 20 milliamps, you're going to start getting a painful shock. You'll actually feel it. And then the 50 milliamps to 100, that's when it actually stops your heart. It will stop your heart and your heart won't be palpitating. It will actually go into a gyrated notion. So I wanted to go over this video. We're going to show a quick clip here, and it's going to actually go over not the serious part of it. So I know that some people have done tricks on other people in regards to electrical shock, and this is actually a video that goes into it. So I'm going to go ahead and play that again. It's rather short, and I'm not being able to get that into full screen. Can you see that at all? Let's see if we can get it into a full screen. There we go. So,
Bob inadvertently discovered a perfect method to see whether or not your best friend is a wuss. Watch.
As you can see, a lot of people don't take electricity seriously, and they think of it as a joke itself. Unfortunately, electricity must be taken seriously. This is a video that has been brought out. Of course, you can look on YouTube, and you can look under electrical safety, and you can find a whole bunch of these laughter, humorous type videos out there. But a couple that I wanted to show you, actually it's just one that I do have, is in regards to taking it very seriously, and it talks about how we can look at it in the regards of what happens when you're actually
developing awareness
in the middle of videotaping. So I wanted to show you this clip that when you're videotaping, you can actually get some of the safeguards that aren't being taken. In this one, it's an actual painter that has gone up on his ladder. He comes close to the electrical lines and is struck down. So some of those safeguards that you're able to take that I've written down here also on the board is to be able to recognize the hazards. Sometimes we're not able to recognize those hazards. As the video showed, it was a painter up on a ladder, and he was actually painting near the electrical lines, and he came in contact with the electrical conduit that was on the outside of the house itself. So some of those things that we need to go over is how to recognize those hazards. And they're in our everyday life. Everywhere we go now, we have our video recorders, we have our TVs, we have our lights and our switches as well. So we need to be familiar with some of the hazards. Examples here are a bad cord. Maybe it's an extension cord that you're plugging into the wall, and the tip part of it, the head part of it, has come loose from the insulation. That can cause a shock. There's also the grounding portion of it. You have to make sure that it has the grounding prong in it so that you don't become the ground, because it will go through your body if it's not insulated and have that grounding portion. Another area that we need to recognize is proper fuse or breaker, making sure that we're going to have that breaker that's going to switch off instead of causing shock or harm to ourselves. And then, of course, proper wiring. We're not going to know those factors. An electrician will know those, but it's something that we need to take a look at so that we're able to recognize those hazards. So some of the other dangers, of course, is the danger of electrical shock. And as I went over how much milliamps and things that can go through your body before ventricular fibrillation starts, we need to know of the first aid as well. What do we do in those type of situations, and what can we do to help that person that has gone through the electrical shock? So one of those factors, of course, when we're coming to first aid is knowing how to give CPR and whether or not they are actually breathing. So we want to make sure that the person is not breathing prior to giving CPR, and then if there is an emergency person that's on status there, then you can bring them over and have them assist. So as we talked about first aid, we need to make sure that everybody knows to respect the voltages. How much does it take to actually feel an electrical shock? As you can see, it only takes a small amount. We need to be aware of what that small amount is, and we need to respect and just train yourself and others to know that electricity can harm you. It's not just an invisible source. We need to know how much that amperage is prior to going in, and letting a professional do that work as well. So other things that I wanted to highlight on, of course, is lockout tagout. When we're working on electricity, we want to make sure that we're locking something out. Say you're just doing a home repair. Maybe it's just changing a light fixture that you have in the house that you want to repair, or in the garage. And you go up there and you start to take it apart, and then you think, well, what if somebody comes by and flips that switch? So in the first hand, you want to go back to the breaker box and you want to make sure that that's locked out and that it's tagged out so nobody else can come along. Maybe your brother comes over for the weekend and he goes to turn on that switch and he didn't even know that you were actually working in that garage, working on that lighting fixture. So you want to make sure that you're doing that lockout, tag out process, not only in general industry, but also at home. That works out so that nobody can get electric shocks. So one of the most important things that is good for electrical safety is training and education. How many of us actually know or train others about electrical safety? It's one of those items that if you don't see it, it can't hurt you, but it can. So we want to make sure that we're familiar with how much electricity it takes to get an electrical shock, what we can do to safeguard ourselves, and then even looking at more brochures. And I did bring you some brochures today, so you're able to take those home with you, just in regards to the grounding, the GFCI. Those are those items that you can get at your local Lowe's or hardware department that will actually trip on the extension cord itself, so you won't get shocked. So maybe there's a cut or a nick in your extension cord, and then you plug it into that GFCI. The GFCI will kick out before you will actually receive a shock. So those are real important items to have in your household, those GFCIs. And now actually it's been mandatory in bathrooms and kitchens in the residential areas, so that we have those already installed in our homes and in our households. Because there's been children and others, even in the kitchen, to where they'll drop the hairdryer maybe into the water, and then they go to reach for it. And without a GFCI, that milliamp or above those milliamps can actually shock the child and or person that's grabbing for that hairdryer. So I encourage you to go home and take a look. See if you have a GFCI in your bathroom or in your kitchen, to make sure that you're going to be safe from electrical shock. I know that Tennessee Valley Association has come out on their website, and they have some paperwork about GFCIs and grounding and cords and those type of things, so you can look on that website as well. And then of course the National Fire Protection Agency is really good about putting out electrical safety. So in conclusion, I just wanted to ask you if you had any questions in regards to electrical safety, and if there was any important items that you would like to share about electrical shock, or if there was anything that I missed that you would like to discuss today. Go ahead, Ken.
What about voltage? For example, is a 12-volt car battery dangerous?
You can get a shock from a 12-volt battery. You definitely can. And it's gonna be in a painful shock, but it's not gonna stop your heart. It's not gonna get you into ventricular fibrillation. It won't. Most of these shocks that do occur, they actually break your contact away from the electrical current itself. So no, not a 12-volt battery that's coming from your vehicle. Unless you're actually grounding out to one of your charging sources within that vehicle in regards to an alternator that's going to bring that voltage up, that's going to make it an increased voltage, then you would be able to get ventricular fibrillation from it. Any other questions? Comments? Have you ever had an electrical shock that you just, that it got your attention from it? Yeah, there's a lot of horror stories out there about electricity, and especially for younger people, because they don't see it, they don't understand, they just figure, oh, it's just the light switch. It just magically comes on. So we need to make sure that we educate our younger people as well. I really appreciate your time today. Have a good day.